Happy 2020, folks. It is a new live edition of Fumblegate. I'm Jason Grefer. That's Adam Kieft. Are you recovered okay? You were celebrating a little hard the last couple of days.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Just need some extra hydration, but we're good.
How many hydration assistants do you have over there today?
Just one. I brought the Gatorade Zero, but I brought myself some hair of the dog as well. So
Hair of the dog?
yeah, that's what they call it when you start drinking in the morning
Oh,
to keep it going.
okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay,
We're good.
I don't know those things. So yeah, we're good. Hopefully your New Year's was good. And I'm losing my mic. Hopefully,
Technical difficulties over here.
yeah, it's just tripod's falling over. So hopefully your New Year's was nice and safe and prosperous, and hopefully you didn't get charged $200 for an Uber or a Lyft ride to get home.
No,
Still cheaper than
than the alternative.
That's right. Cheaper than the alternative. Keeps falling over. So obviously, as we always like to do, we got a lot of stuff to get to here today. And we will first start with the college game. We still do have 5 more bowl games to get to this week. And we'll show you the updated standings in our bowl pick'em here, at least between Adam and I. And quite a stark contrast from a year ago. Let's just put it that way. And
Yeah, well, I'm a little smarter, a little wiser.
We'll show you that here in just a little bit. But first, let's talk a little bit and let's kind of clean up the semifinals from the college football playoff. I mean, there's nothing really to clean up with LSU because they took Oklahoma to the cleaners.
Unsurprisingly.
No, I think everybody was just shocked at how dominant Joe Burrow was.
Let me pose this question to you.
Yep.
Does that game prove winning a conference championship should not automatically put you into the college football playoff?
I think if anything else, it proves right now the Big 12 sucks.
The Big 12 does suck, and I agree. But that became the argument that I saw on social media from some big name guys, basically saying winning a conference championship shouldn't add to your resume to put you into the college football playoff, and that game was why. Contrary to that thinking, I think LSU is just that good. Like I don't know who else you put in, because the argument was, well, maybe Georgia should have been there instead because they were at 5 and they would have given LSU a better game than Oklahoma did. I think LSU is just that good. I that question was out there, and I was wondering your take on it. If it shouldn't automatically help you, and we've mentioned all along that we think that a conference championship win does help your resume because it's the last thing that they see before they go to the committee. So
it certainly helps. I mean,
I think it does too. I think if
anything, it just proves the Big 12 right now is in a downswing.
Well, it's second tier.
I mean, you saw in the Rose Bowl, or not the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl. Last night, Georgia, without its top 2 tackles, without a couple of their top running backs, a couple key defensive players who were all out. I think most of them were skipping it to get ready for the draft.
Most of them draft prep, yeah.
And they still beat Baylor, who was the second best team in the Big 12.
Who was overtime away from being in the playoffs.
Exactly. And so I think right now, it just the Big 12 right now is just in a downturn. I mean, obviously, Texas will try and claim once again we're back after Utah decided not to show up for the Alamo Bowl. Thanks a lot, Ute, you jerks.
Shocking.
Yeah, just a complete no-show from Utah whatsoever.
Last 2 games of the season for Utah, not so hot.
Yeah, they kind of stunk it up. Still an 11-win season, nothing to shake a stick about. How about your boy P.J. Fleck getting to 11 wins?
I know.
And they were in control for most of that game against Auburn.
They really were. They were down only down a touchdown at any point in the game. They were leading. At one point, they were down a touchdown.
Yeah.
But credit to row the boat up there in Minnesota. Who would have thought P.J. Fleck would get 11 wins before Jim Harbaugh would?
Yeah.
Actually, everybody. But I digress. By the way, just another proof that Michigan's got a long way to go. Minnesota essentially proving that they were better than Michigan was this year, despite not playing each other. Minnesota goes out and beats the team that beat Alabama, and Alabama clearly drug Michigan in their bowl game. So, was that me?
No, I had a test there. I received a message there was possibly an audio issue there.
Oh,
no, we're fine.
All right,
we're fine. But yeah, it's just it's all cyclical, and so the Big 12's down right now. Obviously PJ Fleck, very nice win against Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, all the jobs are filled, so I don't know if there's going to be any options out there. I mean, obviously, some stuff's still going to shake up with NFL coaching vacancies that could draw college coaches away.
Sure. Well, one of them being Matt Rule.
One of them being Matt Rule.
Seems like
who's already been requested for interviews. Yeah, Lincoln Riley's going to get interviews, whether he wants to or not. Riley's going to get interest.
Well, that's the thing. Some people are starting to hint at his future too, because there's a kid who is the number one quarterback, number one or number two quarterback in the class of 2021 has decommitted from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And
I saw that he opened his recruitment.
And a few weeks ago, somebody did an interview with him, and he basically said, I would only leave Oklahoma. I would only decommit if Lincoln Riley was leaving.
Yeah.
So, and now he has decommitted.
Speculation.
So now the speculation ramps up there that he might be headed down to Jerry World. And we'll talk a little bit about those NFL open jobs here in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the semifinal again. Again, LSU pasted Oklahoma. There's nothing really to talk about there other than the fact that it was utter destruction. And so LSU's on to the title game, and they're going to take on Clemson in what was an absolutely classic game against Ohio State. One of the better bowl games you could watch.
Yeah.
Semifinal, of course. It was one of the few semifinal games that was actually close. I think it was only like the third single-digit margin in a semifinal game. So even with that notwithstanding, it was a great football game.
Yeah, it was fun to watch.
That was you expected. I think we both expected a lot of offense. It was way more smash mouth than I think anybody saw coming. You know, it felt good watching it. It was just a throwback, old school football game.
It was very physical, and the yards were there. The points were hard to come by. You look at the field goals. Clemson scored the touchdowns, but Ohio State kept getting held to field goals. It was really, really interesting. It seemed early on that Ohio State was in control of that game, and I was kind of wondering, when's Clemson going to show up and decide they want to play? And then about towards the end of the second quarter there, or the end of the first half, they decided to put in 2 touchdowns real quick at the end of the first half. To really make it a game, and then came out in the third quarter and put together a long drive to score to take the lead. And then the fourth quarter, despite only having 2 touchdowns scored in the fourth quarter, it was the back and forth of the fourth quarter and who was going to get the break, who was going to get the long run or convert the third down or whatever to finish the game. And it looked like Ohio State had an opportunity. Their touchdown they scored on 4th and 2 without hesitation. Ryan Day goes for it on 4th and 2, and they scored a touchdown. And the DB that got beat ends up being the one that saved the game at the end by making the interception in the end zone, which was pretty cool. But the fourth quarter, a lot of again drama and who's gonna make the play, who's gonna make the difference in the game there. Clemson going down with I think they got the ball with about 3 minutes left, scored with just under 2. Made it look easy for that drive, but the rest of that fourth quarter was really just a back and forth, each team getting stops and who was going to be able to break through and finally get into the end zone.
Well, the things really turned, it seemed like, for Clemson when Shaun Wade was ejected. The safety for Ohio State was ejected for a targeting call against Trevor Lawrence. Very controversial call. They came in off a safety blitz and hit Lawrence helmet to helmet as Lawrence was basically ducking his head in to try to avoid the contact as best he could. And that's what drew the helmet to helmet contact. And Wade was ejected for targeting. And then you also had the play where the Clemson wide receiver catches the ball. Jeff Okudah wraps him up from behind, knocks the ball out after the receiver had seemingly taken 3 or 4 steps. He still had the ball like way out in front of him. He hadn't brought it into his body.
Brought it into his body,
and fumbled it. And Ohio State returned it for a touchdown, and it was eventually overturned. Kudos to the officials for letting it play out.
Yeah, which is what, as we watched the game, my brother was asking, like, why would they allow it to play out if they thought it was incomplete, and because they want to see what actually happened, because they have the ability to go back and review it now.
Yeah, they can go back and change it. I mean, you
can change it. You can't, if you call it incomplete, you can't change it to then a fumble. So you have to let it play out as a fumble and then see what happens from there.
And then to further that point, you can't overturn it to a fumble and then go ahead and say, well, Ohio State ran it back, it's a touchdown.
Yeah, the best case scenario would have been that they would have gotten the ball at the spot if they called it a catch and then a fumble. but because they let it play out, it could have been a touchdown for Ohio. So the two things you mentioned, one, targeting, and I hate the rule of targeting, but by the rule, that's the correct call. And I know a lot of Ohio State fans are upset about it because Trevor Lawrence was ducking, kind of ducking to avoid the hit, and that's what led to the helmet contact. But you see it time and time again. This isn't unique to the Ohio the game. It happens everywhere in college football. It happened to my Chippewas in the MAC championship game. Quarterback was running and slipped, and he's ducking and slipping all at the same time, and the guy's coming in for a good form tackle with his arms out, trying to make a good tackle, and it just ends up as incidental helmet-to-helmet contact. But by the rule, that's still targeting, and they have to be ejected for it. The same thing in the game. When Trevor Lawrence is getting sacked, he's trying to avoid contact, but it ends up as helmet-to-helmet contact, and by rule, that's targeting. And again, there's no subjectivity to targeting anymore. They just, once it's helmet-to-helmet, it's automatically targeting, and you can't determine intent, so they have to eject them, and it sucks. And as an Ohio State fan, obviously you think it really sucks, but it happens all the time to guys that are just coming in to make tackles. And I wish they could leave some subjectivity in there and say, hey, look, the quarterback is ducking his head as well, and it's not, his intent wasn't to hit him in the helmet, but by rule they can't do that. They just have to determine it's helmet to helmet, and it becomes targeting. So that one is incredibly frustrating if you're an Ohio State fan, and I understand. The fumble or the would-be fumble is the one that's a little more confusing to me because
what's a catch?
Yeah, when is it a catch? Because
nobody knows.
If that's in the end zone, they probably rule it a touchdown.
Absolutely,
and probably stands. But I don't know if this is true, but I heard during the broadcast that the officials are only allowed to watch the replay in real time. They're not allowed to watch it in slow motion. And I will say, in real time when the play happened, I didn't think it was a catch because in real time, it looks like his body is shielding the defender, and you see he never brings it into his body. So in real time, it just looks like it gets knocked away. Now his feet are moving, and he's trying to complete the catch. But in real time, I didn't think it was a fumble. I thought it was just an incomplete pass. But when you watch the slow motion replays, clearly he's 3 or 4 steps in the ground. But I think part of it is just because that ball was out away from his body. It made it very difficult in real time to call it a catch. But again, if that happens in the end zone, they probably call it a touchdown. And I don't know if you can overturn it when you call it a touchdown. Same way that I was surprised that they didn't allow that to be a fumble and then return for a touchdown.
Well, it's both the plays set off Ohio State fans, and namely from what I saw on the Twitterverse, and
social media didn't disappoint with Ohio State fans crying about those two.
No, well, part of it, what made it even worse, and I think triggered him even more, is the fact this was an SEC crew that was calling this game, and so here comes all the Ohio State conspiracy theorists. Not every Ohio State fan is like this. There are just the vocal group of them saying it. They're out to get him. They're out to get him. Everybody's out to get us.
Nobody wants to see Ohio State play the SEC because they knew LSU already won. And
exactly.
Come on.
Everybody really knows Ohio State is the big dog, and the SEC is just chump change or second tier behind Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State's the national power.
All of these people want to bitch and moan that the officials cost them the game because of these two particular plays. Yeah. Now, they're bang plays. They could have gone either way. The Shaun Wade targeting call, to me, brings in something now to where you've got to basically have 2 tiers of targeting.
Yeah.
A play like that where Wade was wrapping up. He wasn't launching. He wasn't just going in kamikaze
style. His arms
style.
are out to make a tackle.
If you want to call that, call it like a 15-yard penalty for unnecessary.
That's why I said the NCAA needs to examine.
You need to differentiate the two.
Yeah, if they can make it intent. Because there's clearly not intent there for him to take his head off.
There's not.
With his arms out, he's trying to make the tackle. And again, I understand by rule that is targeting, but that's not his intent. He's not trying to launch himself helmet to helmet to take his head off. And I agree. There needs to be some differentiation between intent and that's just incidental helmet, but similar to face masks. that they have in the NFL. There's 5-yard face masks and 15-yard face masks because
there was. They got rid of that. But I got you.
But the grasping part, that needs to be something the NCAA looks at because it does. It makes a difference in the game because not only is it the 15-yard penalty, continue the drive. That was a third down. It was a sack on third down. Would have ended the drive, obviously. And a player's ejected. And unfortunately, there needs to be something examined with that rule because it costs teams
It needs to be 2 tiers.
too often. Yes, there needs to be a penalty without an ejection. It can't just be penalty and ejection every time. I don't like it.
And the other play with the fumble, and like you said, you saw in the replay that the receiver had both hands on the ball. The ball didn't move in his hands until it was knocked out by the defender, but it was after it was taken 4 steps. But anyway, I digress. So Ohio State fans have gone on a rant that the officials have cost them a chance to play for the championship game. It's all the referees. It has nothing to do with what the action happened on the field. It's strictly the officials, and it's the SEC crew. The NCAA is biased towards the SEC. Everybody's out to get Ohio State. Ohio State, we just can't have them playing for the title, so we're going to put it in the refs' ears to change these calls and make sure they go Clemson's way.
Sorry, Ohio State.
Okay, so Ohio State fans, think about some of this stuff that happened on the field. The momentum of the game changed with the Shaun Wade targeting penalty, and things kind of went from there, and Clemson was able to rally to win it. But you go back before that, as you said, Ohio State was dominating this football game early because I don't think Clemson thought Ohio State was as physical as they were.
No,
and it took them a while to adjust. But
they really came out and hit Clemson in the mouth, and it took Clemson until the second quarter to even realize what was going on, it seemed like.
But offensively for Ohio State, you had a chance first and second quarters to make this thing 21, 24, 28-0.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it. You had multiple dropped touchdown passes, one on a screen, one on a receiver, a halfback flaring out of the backfield that would have both been touchdown passes. Those were dropped. Instead, you had to settle for field goals there. Now, Clemson has one of the best red zone defenses in the country, but they can't defend when you're dropping touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So you had to turn those into field goals. Then you have Justin Fields, who threw 1 pick all year, throws 2 of them in this game. Now, the first one was just bad because Fields had been throwing to the sideline all day long, all night long. And eventually, any football player is going to know Fields is looking to the sideline.
Yeah,
he
threw it to the sideline. Especially a good team like Clemson.
Right, and he got it picked off. And then the one on the final drive of the game, you notice at the top of the route, the receiver runs the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so you're telling me
the receiver cut out, he threw it in, and just kind of lobbed it up there. I'm not sure even if the receiver cuts in, that still doesn't get picked off. But
you're in game number,
he threw it straight to the defender.
You're in game number 14, and the quarterback and receiver can't get on the same page.
Yeah, especially
where their Fields threw the wrong thing to the post, or the receiver ran the wrong route. There was a post corner, and you're telling, and they're off on the. They're not on the same page, and it winds up being easy pitch and catch. In that case, also for Ohio State. Oh, we got a guest here.
We got a visitor.
Oh, need some yogurt.
Yep.
Need some breakfast there.
Gotta get excited on the yogurt.
One of the other things too, for Ohio State fans to think about, a couple more things. You get into the red zone 4 times against Clemson, and all you're settling for is field goals. You can't punch it into the end zone.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
And short field goals at that. They had a 21, a 22, and a 33-yard field goal. All those are inside the 15-yard line, and you couldn't score touchdowns on any of those.
Are those the referee's fault?
No, I mean those are trained monkey range field goals. Like if one more of those is a touchdown, then you're a field goal away at the end of the game instead of being 6 points down and needing a touchdown.
Is it the official's fault that you went 7 for 18 on third down?
No.
Is it the official's fault that you gave up a 94-yard touchdown drive in 4 plays?
Yeah.
That wound up losing the game for you? Is it the official's fault? No. Could those calls have gone your way? Could they have gone Ohio State's way? Absolutely. And I understand the gripe with them. But to sit there and continually say, no, it's the officials. We had this game in the bag, and then the officials decide to stick their nose in it. Way to go, NCAA. You paid off the officials to beat Clemson. Clemson paid off the officials, clearly, and Ohio State just gets screwed again. Stop with these damn conspiracy theories. Yeah. You lost, and it's your own doing. Yeah, I mean, even if that fumble is returned for a touchdown, the call stands. There's still a bunch of time left in the game for Clemson to possibly win the game back anyway.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that play happened with 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So just shut up. You lost.
Yeah.
And it was a great football game. Again, you had plenty of chances to win. 4 red zone trips. You can't put it in the end zone once. Yep. And 2 of those were because your receivers dropped touchdown passes.
Yep. Yep.
Shut up. You lost.
You had the chance to make the game 28-0 to start.
Yeah.
And Clemson, by the way, only scored 29. You could have started the game up 28-0.
And if you 28-0, you're not losing.
No.
Clemson's not coming back from 28-0 down.
No, they're not. It's just anytime you make excuses, you weaken your ability to control the situation, and that's it. I didn't like that Ryan Day came out and said the same thing in his post game press conference. That
blaming that's the thing. It triggers it. It triggers fans even more.
Well, our coach says that it's the official's fault.
We're angry. We're angry.
Don't get me wrong. Like if those 2 calls go differently, Ohio State probably wins the game. But guess what? If you don't throw 2 picks and you score touchdowns in your red zone opportunities from the 5-yard line, don't drop touchdown passes, you win the game that way too.
The targeting thing is like you said. It's the rule sucks.
But that's the rule.
It's the rule. If it's a helmet-to-helmet hit, they're going to call targeting, and you're gone. You know, it didn't. It just happened to turn out that Wade arrived right as Lawrence was ducking his head. Now, obviously, in the gripe is he can't control that. I understand that, but that's the letter of the rule right now. The letter of the law sucks, and it needs to be changed into some kind of two-tier thing.
Right call.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Just some of that nonsense, and it overshadows what was a great football game.
Yeah, and it's only because you're on the losing end. Like if you weren't on the losing end, you wouldn't gripe about the officiating, but you're on the losing end, and again, it's the team's fault. Like that's again. By the way, it's not unless at a minimum your degree says the Ohio State on it. It's not we. I went to social media, and of course, fans didn't disappoint with their complaining.
Oh yeah.
But it's all these, Twitter warriors. We got screwed. No, you did not get screwed. The team might have gotten screwed, although they didn't. But the team lost. You didn't lose anything. You have nothing invested in that team other than being a fan. You did not lose. You lost nothing.
If you want to blame somebody, blame the NCAA for, number one, having an unclear thing as far as targeting goes in a situation like this. And then the thing with
having the replay system. Don't even have a replay system.
What's a catch? What's not a catch? Nobody at any level knows what that is. And no one's even tried to define that. But number 3, the NCAA are the ones that assigned the SEC crew to this game. It's not like the SEC. It's not like SEC commissioner is telling them, screw Ohio State, screw Ohio State. Clemson's not an SEC team.
Yeah.
And as far as I can recall,
Clemson. They want LSU playing Clemson or Ohio State?
As far as I can recall, Clemson has never in their history been an SEC team. Man.
But, by the way, correctly predicted by me at Fumblegate. Clemson, been there before.
Yep.
And they overcame the adversity. It
was a great football game.
It was a great football game. It was fun to watch.
That's the thing. I wasn't upset that I picked Ohio State and they lost. I wasn't upset because of the bowl pick'em thing. It was one of those games you could sit back and watch because I had no rooting interest in it. It was a great football.
Care. Football's a lot more fun when you don't care. By the way,
that's one of the reasons why I kind of gave up on fantasy football years ago, because I just found it more stressful watching. And it's a game. I want to enjoy watching it.
Yeah,
that's why I gave up on it a while back.
The only one that I even get the only game I ever get like intense about is when the Chippewas play. That's the only one I care about.
How do you think I was watching Kentucky play Virginia Tech?
Yeah, like it's just like. But other than that, I don't care. Like I didn't care if Ohio or Clemson won this game. Like
speaking of that. This was nauseating to watch ESPN basically slobber over Bud Foster for the entire broadcast. I've said it before.
By the way, couldn't figure out how to stop the quarterback from running it. Quarterback turned receiver turned quarterback from running the ball.
But like I've said it before here on the show, Bud Foster is one of the greatest defensive coordinators the college football game has ever seen. But my God. Yeah. Did we really need to see a picture of him after every single replay? This was worse than CBS's relationship with Robert Kraft. Anytime the Patriots are on, we have to get umpteen shots of Robert Kraft on CBS because apparently he and Jim Nantz are buddies. And so we have to show him incessantly. It was just, oh, my God. And yes, and to your point, we're showing him the entire time with all these ticked off reactions because they could not stop Lynn Bowden. Now, granted, the last 2 months of the season, nobody could stop Lynn Bowden, and Bud Foster was no different. And that's why we keep talking about, kept saying how great of a defensive coordinator, how great of a coach he is, and he is, but he doesn't have the dudes.
Yeah.
And when you don't have the dudes, and again, if you've watched Kentucky's offense for the last 2 months, it is a spread offense, but it's basically an option. It's a one-read option for Lynn Bowden to take off, and nobody could stop it. They averaged 350 yards per game on the ground, though while Lynn Bowden was a starter over the last 8. But my God, ESPN, you're showing him the entire game,
swan song.
And his team is getting torched by Lynn Bowden,
by a receiver turned quarterback.
Yes, it's just come on. If they're pitching a shutout, or they're just up 4 touchdowns, go for it. Absolutely go for it.
Yeah, they win the game and he gets a Gatorade bath or something. That's fine.
I don't need how many. I don't need.
You the whole pregame you talked about him, and the first drive, okay, yeah, or they get a 3 and out, okay, you want to talk about them, but
how many different?
You weren't even winning the game.
How many different replays do we need to see Bud Foster basically saying, "You got to be kidding me," after his team just gave up another big run? And then how about Lynn Bowden winning the game by throwing a touchdown pass?
I know, ironically,
which was great too. Because
good for him, by the way.
Yeah, so great. Build Lynn Bowden a statue in Lexington already.
Farewell, fare thee well. Good luck in the NFL.
Yeah, Andy Beshear, new governor of Kentucky, put him on a stamp.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so let's move on, and I hope I don't have to rant anymore like that because those two things just fired me up so badly.
Fine, I'll take over. I'll rant. Guess what? We got a kicker this week. I wasn't sure if we were going to get one, but lo and behold, we got the Rose Bowl coming through for us. We only got one, but this is a good one. Wisconsin's Connor Larsh missed from 47 in the Rose Bowl. They end up losing to Oregon 28-27. Ugh. 1 point.
It's a very kicker name.
Colin Larsh. Larsh. Yep. Colin Larsh missed from 47. Cost Wisconsin the game. By the way, Wisconsin controlled that game. I don't know. I know we both watched it. If you didn't happen to watch the Rose Bowl, Wisconsin controlled that game statistically, except for the one statistic that matters, and that's turnovers. Wisconsin just handed the ball over. I mean, literally, the punter literally handed the ball over, like dropped it at his feet and let it get picked up for a touchdown.
But that's the other thing that got me too, and I asked just before we came on air, what's Wisconsin doing throwing the ball 35 times?
I don't know. Like, you got the best maybe not the best, but one of the best running backs in college football, perhaps in college football's recent memory, in Jonathan Taylor, and he only ran for 94 yards. Like,
why are you throwing it 35 times?
Why is he not running the ball for 250 yards?
Your defense held Oregon to 204 yards, and you still lost because you couldn't stop
4 turns.
Because you couldn't stop turning the ball over. Oh boy, but yes, in the end, Colin Larsh, way to go, bud.
Way to go, bud. It would have been all for naught. The 4 turnovers wouldn't have mattered if you made your 47-yarder. But unfortunately for you, you missed it, and good news for us. So Oregon gets the Rose Bowl win despite getting smacked on the statistical side. But the only stat that matters is turnovers and the final score, and Oregon won both of those. So,
there you go.
Frustrating day for Colin Larsh.
That wound up being a win for both of us, though, in the bowl pick'em standings.
Yeah, we both picked Oregon. I just didn't expect Wisconsin to dominate statistically like they did. I thought Oregon's offense would be a little more explosive in that game.
Absolutely. So, the bowl pick'em, thanks to those who have gotten involved in ESPN, and here's how it stands right now between Adam and I. And I said it earlier, boy, what a turnaround from a year ago.
Yeah, got a little smarter.
Adam's figured some things out this year, as you can see. He's a 24-11 in the bowl picks thus far. And you see at the bottom right there, he's in the 93rd percentile on ESPN's bowl pick'em. Yeah. I mean, only 7% of the people who have gotten involved have done better at him in picking the game. So, I mean, that's pretty good.
3 people still undefeated, though. That's astonishing that there's still impressive. 3 people that haven't lost yet. But
it's impressive. But yeah, it's a... Yeah, so Adam's up there.
A little more research this year, I've been paying attention.
Well, there's only 6 games left, and you're 5 games ahead of me, so I'm not going to catch you because I know that, hey.
We're probably picking the same. No, don't do that.
Youngsters shooting the laser in our eyes. Come on, man. Don't do that.
Go back upstairs.
That hurt.
Go back upstairs. Side effect of Christmas break, folks. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you have 3 kids. Go back upstairs. All right.
There we go.
Close the door.
Oh, laser in the eye. That got me.
Did he get you?
That got me.
Stop shooting lasers.
The freaking laser off the freaking
laser beam.
All right, so Adam's going to win the bowl pick'em between the two of us. There's a couple people in our bowl pick'em on ESPN that still have a shot at catching you. I'm not going to catch you. Like I said, I'm 5 behind with 6 to go, and I'm sure some of the games we're going to agree on.
Yeah, I think we may agree on almost all of them from here on out.
Well, we got 5 games to cover this week. 2 of them are today. And up first at 3 p.m. Eastern time today, the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl. Boston College taking on the fighting Luke Fickles and the Cincinnati Bearcats. This should be a bear.
Oh, by the way, apparently it looks like Luke Fickle might have his job for another year. We both thought that he was going to be moving up with what was available, and ironically enough, there doesn't appear to be a job right now for Luke Fickle and somewhere else in college football. Which good news if you're a UC Bearcat fan, because
you get to enjoy one more year of him.
Yep, you get to enjoy him for one more year, and right. Their schedule doesn't suck next year either. They got a shot at running the table, to be honest with you. So,
well, they're taking on Boston College here. A.J. Dillon, Boston College's all-purpose running back, is not playing. He's going to the NFL. They've already fired head coach Steve Adazio. This smells like a Bearcats blowout.
I think it is a Bearcats blowout. Obviously, bad taste in their mouth from the 2 losses to Memphis to end the season. Again, like you mentioned, A.J. Dillon not playing in this game, who's basically been Boston College's offense most of the season without their head coach. I got the Bearcats in this one. I know Boston College puts up a bunch of yards, but they also don't play defense there in Boston. So UC does like to play a little bit of defense. I like them to get the sour taste out of their mouth. Boston College lost 3 of their last 5 down the stretch. Now, not necessarily to any slouches, lost to Notre Dame and Clemson, 2 of those 3. But the loss to FSU, not a good look. Struggle with Pitt in the last week of the season. So, yeah, I got UC winning this one. Like you said, this one could get away from Boston very, very quickly.
Tonight, the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Indiana, the Fighting Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Well, like I mentioned before we went on, I said when I saw Indiana was in a bowl game, I was thinking, like a 6-6 Indiana team. Nope. Turns out they're 8-4.
No, not a bad ball club this year.
Not at all.
Taking on Tennessee, what a Jekyll and Hyde team they were from the first half of the year to the second.
We were talking about their head coach getting fired early in the season,
and we weren't the only ones.
No, yeah.
Tennessee, and Tennessee's doing it with defense. To get themselves to 7-5. They have won 5 in a row. They're playing very, very well defensively. I think Tennessee wins here. Not going to shock me if Indiana wins because Indiana can score. They've got a really good offense.
Yeah, they put up a bunch of yards and a bunch of points. They're averaging 32 points per game.
Yeah, I like Tennessee's defense here to just be enough.
Yeah, you mentioned it down the stretch. They haven't allowed more than 21 points in their last 5 games. They've won their last 5. I got Tennessee in this one. I had to think about it, and you mentioned their defense, so I looked at it a little bit, and their defense has been really solid the second half of the season. And, I like Tennessee in this one.
Moving on to Friday afternoon, the Blue Turf, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, which Central Michigan's been to before.
We've been, yeah. I played in that stadium, not in a bowl game. Unfortunately, Chippewas weren't playing in bowl games back then. But I got a chance to play on that turf the weekend after Thanksgiving of my redshirt freshman year. The Blue Turf is a little bit of a trip, not going to lie to you. Like, it's blue before you get there, and it still freaks you out a little bit.
Well, yeah, still see it in person.
Yeah, you knew it was going to be blue, and I don't know if it's the same setup as it used to be. It used to be like a high school stadium where there was a track around the field, and the locker rooms are in the end zone, and there's bleachers right in front of the locker room. So you come out onto the track.
Yeah.
And so you're outside and you can't see the turf yet. And you walk around the side of the bleachers, and as soon as you turn that corner, and you're like,
whoa.
Oh, it is blue. Like, it really is blue. By the way, birds do not kill themselves on the field, though. We did find that out. Birds think it's water, and they try and fly into it.
Oh, some kind of urban legend?
Yeah, it doesn't actually happen. We asked the groundskeeper, we're like, do you really have to scrape? No, birds don't kill themselves on the turf. But, yeah. Anyway, Blue Turf. famous Idaho Potato Bowl. We got a little action. Frank Solich got a new contract. What do you got? Nevada versus Ohio.
Ohio versus Nevada. Frank Solich has a new contract. Wolfpack.
Wow.
I'm gonna go with Nevada here. Just if anything else, just the not nearly the travel that Ohio has to go through from Athens all the way out to Boise. I know they've been out there for a couple of days.
I don't think
you can get acclimated.
It really matters the distance because it's still going to be cold and it's still going to be on blue turf. And
that's true.
I got the Bobcats. A down season for Frank Solich at 6-6. Oh, by the way, just making like his 12th bowl game in a row.
Yeah.
Even without the services of Joe Burrow's father as the defense coordinator, which I just learned about before their semifinal game, that Joe Burrow's dad used to be the defensive coordinator for the Ohio Bobcats.
Look for some points to be scored here in this game too. Ohio's got a pretty good offense. Nevada's defense is a little suspect.
Yeah,
but Ohio gives up a lot of yards.
Well, Nevada gives up 32 points per game, and Ohio scores 35. So I like the fighting Frank Solich's to win this one.
Should be an entertaining one, nevertheless.
Yeah, it should be a good one.
Saturday
to do on your Friday afternoon. Right?
How about a Saturday morning kickoff?
Yeah, 11:30 a.m. Eastern.
11:30 a.m. The Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, Southern Miss and Tulane. I got Tulane.
I got Tulane as well. I got the Green Wave. They put up a bunch of points. They're a pretty good offense there at Tulane, and again, it's one of those ones that you wouldn't know it unless you started peeking at the stats, but. Tulane scoring 33 points per game, 450 yards per game, getting it done through the ground in the air. They actually average 250 yards rushing. Tulane does.
Both these teams coming in kind of skidding their way through the end of the year. They've lost us early to Tulane. They've lost four of their last five.
4 of their last 5 for Tulane, and Southern Miss lost their last 2, including Western Kentucky and FAU. Oh, by the way, Western Kentucky beat the Western Michigan Broncos. I love it.
Like the way they ended too.
They neither team apparently wanted to win that game there towards the end. They just kept giving the ball back to each other at 2020. Like, no, you take it. No, you take it. And then Western decides to, on the Hail Mary, Western decides to trot out 12 guys on defense. Hail Mary goes incomplete. But, oh, wait, there's more. They get a penalty. So now Western Kentucky gets to try for the long field goal. Ends up making the long
52-yarder.
52-yarder. So they end up making the field. So they trotted out at the a bit of a musical chair situation. They trotted out their field goal, and then they changed their mind, trotted back out their offense, and Western got caught somewhere in between their field goal block and their defense, which is why they ended up with 12 guys on the field. Then they decided to actually kick the field goal after the penalty, and Western moves to the worst record of any college football team in bowl games. They are 1-9 in bowl games, the Western Michigan Broncos. Doesn't sadden me one bit. 1-9, worst record in bowl history for any team that's played in 10 of them. 1-9. Sorry, Western. Sucks to be you. And then, by the way, at the end of the day, you still go to Western. So, the bowl record notwithstanding, you still have to live in Kalamazoo and go to Western Michigan. Oh, and don't forget the color uniforms are poop and pee, just so you know. Anywho, I know they're not listening to the show.
More action.
Monday
night.
Monday night. We got Miami.
The MAC champions.
The MAC champions. Wah, wah, wah. Miami, Ohio versus Louisiana. Who you got?
The Raging Cajuns all day long here.
Yeah,
they can score a ton. Miami, if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to hold the ball, I think, for at least 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Because Louisiana can score in bunches.
Yeah, Louisiana puts up a bunch of points, averaging almost 39. Miami giving up more points than they score, giving up 28 to their 24 that they average. Louisiana, by the way, averages 500 yards per game. As much as I appreciate what Miami did to my Chippewas in the MAC championship game, I got Louisiana.
The Raging Cajuns. This might be a four score game.
Yeah, this one could get ugly real quick.
It might get really, really ugly.
Yeah.
So there's your 5 bowl games for this week. Next week we'll go in. We'll have all kinds of breakdowns of the national championship.
Yeah.
And
we get to put that off for one more week because they're playing it on a Monday 2 weeks out. But we got plenty of time to talk about the national championship. But we got some more. We got some more playoff games this week.
Yeah, let's go to the NFL.
It's wild card weekend in the NFL.
Well, we'll give you picks on those here in just a bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about kind of the silly season in the NFL with all the coaching changes.
By the way, who's not playing in Wild Card Weekend? Oh, that's right, them Cowboys. Are we still them boys?
Yeah, hate to see it.
Oh, you hate to see it.
Yeah, I hate to see it. All right, so their head coaching position likely is going to come open. Jason Garrett's contract is officially up at the end of the season.
They're meeting again today, by the way.
For the third day in a row.
Yeah, came across. Garrett and Jerry Jones are meeting again today.
So
it's the writing's on the wall. Just fire the guy.
Well, it's at the end of the season. They can let his contract lapse.
But he's get him out of the office.
He's family, and he's been a Cowboy for 20-some years.
That's great. And I'll put him in your front office and make him a scout. Like,
there you go.
Get him off the field, because that appears to be the inevitability of Jerry's thinking here.
Yeah.
Get him off the field, open up his office, and start doing interviews. So you're just wasting time at this point. You're not playing in the playoffs. Go find a coach.
So for our purposes here, we're going to assume that job is going to be open, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people they're going to want to talk to about it. I'm sure Matt Rule, Lincoln Riley. If I was Dallas,
which he has to. That has to be his first two phone. In my opinion, that has to be his first two phone calls.
I would be calling Kansas City, see if I could talk to Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah,
I think he's overdue to be a head coach.
I know he's been mentioned with the other vacancies that are already available. A lot of teams requesting him.
If he becomes a head coach, Chris Berman just got a job again, because then it's Eric sleeping with Bieniemy. He can bring that back from 25 years ago. Okay, so that job, we assume Dallas is going to be open. We already know some of the other jobs that are open. Washington has been filled. Ron Rivera is their head coach. Jack Del Rio is going to be his defensive coordinator.
Just moving a little farther north. That might be a good fit there, by the way.
Could be. Well, and also they got rid of Bruce Allen, so that may help too.
Yeah. Well, anytime your GM has I believe he was 32 games below 500 in the last 10 seasons.
Over 10 years, he kept his job that long.
10 years, but still 32 games below. I think they were 46 and 70 something. I don't know. It was bad.
Okay, so 4 teams here that we believe either do have job openings or are going to have. We're going to have Dallas, Carolina, Cleveland, and the New York Giants. In your mind, which one would be most attractive if you're out there and your guy that's available and your guy getting calls, say like a Mike McCarthy, who's going to interview with the Browns today, he's going to interview with the Giants tomorrow, you got Josh McDaniels' name out there. Which one would be most intriguing to you?
Well, I think the two that are most intriguing to me are obviously the Cowboys, because Jerry wants to win. I don't know. I feel like he needs to put somebody in the GM role. He needs to stop doing both. Just be the owner and just go out there and have an intermediary.
Good
because
luck.
I know it's not going to happen, but at this point, it's the head coach and Jerry are the only two people that matter in Dallas. And unfortunately, I think Jerry gets in his own way sometimes too. He needs to get out of his own way. But Jerry's going to spend the money, and you have every resource at your disposal in Dallas. So that one's intriguing for that reason. And I think they have a good group of young players. You got Ezekiel Elliott. You assume Dak Prescott is going to get a big contract. I still don't think that's the correct decision, but you assume Dak Prescott's going to get money to be your franchise quarterback. And you have a really good offensive line down there. Like, Dallas has a good core to start with. And then the other one is Cleveland. I think Cleveland, again, the core of the young players that they have there, with their defense, the defensive line that they have there. Baker Mayfield needs some direction. He's not getting the direction from the coaching staff. That I think if Baker Mayfield's your quarterback going forward, he has to be included in the decision. I think an offensive-minded head coach similar to Bieniemy, he would be a good fit there. And then just the Shad Khan appears to be wanting to spend the money. Hey, go away. Sorry, again, children. Stay upstairs, you goober. I just think that there's and save the Ravens, the rest of the division appears to be pretty open. It's intriguing to me. It'll be interesting to see. And Cleveland fans are going to support you. That's the other thing too with Cleveland, is that you're not going to be thrown to the wolves. That's why a job like the Giants is so much less appealing to me if I'm interviewing, because it's just a high pressure situation in New York. you're going to have to deal with the Eli Manning situation, whoever gets hired there, whether or not Eli comes back to finish out.
He says he's not.
He says he's not going to be the backup, so what do you do with Eli Manning? And then just the New York media is so much more intense. And sometimes that job just isn't for everybody, and it's going to be difficult. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how these ones get filled. But I think Dallas is appealing because Jerry Jones is going to give you every opportunity. Obviously, he gave Jason Garrett how many friggin' years to try and turn that thing around and couldn't get it done.
9. And
then Cleveland because of young core players. So it'll be interesting to see, the names that are out there. Rob Saleh, the defense coordinator, both the offensive coordinator, run game and pass game coordinators for the 49ers names are out there. Bieniemy's name is out there. Mike McCarthy, obviously. It's going to be really interesting to see, who these jobs get filled by. Does Josh McDaniels get another shot as a head coach? I don't know. Is he really truly just the coach in waiting to take over the Patriots when Bill Belichick retires, or is he willing to move on and try it somewhere else again? It's I don't know. What do you think? What is the most intriguing one to you? What do you got?
As far as most attractive goes, I hate saying it, but it's got to be Dallas for all the reasons that you mentioned. The Jerry Jones is going to give you pieces to try to win.
Yeah.
This team is certainly underachieved with everything that he has provided Jason Garrett. And Jason Garrett, he has ESPN found this, or I think Elias Sports found this incredible stat that he is tied for the second most 8-8 seasons in NFL history with 4 of them in 9 years.
Yeah.
The only one who has more is Jeff Fisher with 5. And surprised his name hasn't come back up for some job somewhere just because he took Tennessee to the Super Bowl 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But Dallas has got to be intriguing. I actually find Cleveland the least intriguing of these, simply because you've got an owner there who has shown no patience with anything he has done. Whether
they do run through everybody.
Whether coaching staff, they parted ways with John Dorsey, even though John Dorsey drafted him Baker Mayfield. He got Jarvis Landry. He got Odell Beckham. He drafted Nick Chubb. He gave them pieces to win. Freddie Kitchens couldn't get the job done, and I thought from the beginning...
We thought Freddie Kitchens was a bad hire.
That was a bad hire. But nevertheless, you thought maybe it could have worked because he had success at the end of last year. I still don't... befuddles me, and I guess maybe it goes to show his reputation, why Greg Williams was not given the job there, given how well they played after they fired Hugh Jackson.
Yeah.
And but Greg Williams has a reputation out there. I mean... Bountygate, the thing, and also if you watched him on Hard Knocks, he's
abrasive.
He can be a little tough on guys, but it's just what would make you think you have any job security there in Cleveland whatsoever? Now you have have the support of a great fan base in Cleveland.
Probably one of the best fan bases in
most
all
diehard fan bases. Absolutely,
given their crappy,
their
crappy product on the field, they're always there.
But once again, you're a franchise with no direction whatsoever.
Yeah.
You got rid of John Dorsey because they're clearly the Haslams are putting the blame on the Freddie Kitchens situation on John Dorsey.
Yeah.
Even though they had to sign off on it because they're cutting the checks.
Yeah.
But they put it on John Dorsey, and they tried to push him to the side in a role that would not have as much say-so over things, and he didn't like that, so they parted ways. So, again, they started the decade without a head coach or GM. They're going to end the decade without a coach or GM. The difference is this time around they have talent, but again, why would you think you have any kind of job security up there in Cleveland whatsoever? If 6-10 this year for a team that a lot of people thought we were going to go to the playoffs. Neither one of us said they were going to go to the playoffs.
But certainly we're the sexy wild card pick.
The talent was there.
Preseason, you really could argue that they had a shot at winning the division in theory because we didn't know how good the Ravens were going to be. Now, it turns out the Ravens are phenomenal. But
nobody knew the Ravens were going to break the record for rushing.
They were going to be that good.
Right.
So the Browns were kind of a sexy pick by a lot of people to win that division.
Yeah.
it is interesting though that it's a very good point that there is very little job security in Cleveland. Like they have been running through head coaches and GMs for the last 6 or 7 years.
If you're a head coach, why would you even think about buying an apartment or a house there? Because you know in 12 months you're going to get canned. Just live in a hotel.
What's typical with coaches is they buy the previous coach's houses. That's just how it works. Typically, the new guy that'll come in and will buy Freddie Kitchen's house, and they'll cut him a good deal on it or whatever because the money is secondary at that point. They're just trying to get out of town.
On the opposite side of things, Jerry Jones seemingly is going to give you every chance to win. I mean, like I said, he's held on to Jason.
Patience.
He's held on to Jason Garrett for 9 years, and he's been to the playoffs 3 times.
Yeah, lots of patience.
He's had more 8-8 seasons in playoff appearances. Yeah. Now you wonder going forward with Jason Garrett, he's family because he spent his career holding Troy Aikman's jock. And now, now he's a head coach.
Put him in the office. Like if that's what you want to do, put him in the office. Make him a GM. Make him a scout.
He won't take it.
No, he probably won't. But I think he's going to have other coaching opportunities. I think Jason Garrett's going to have an opportunity to go somewhere and call plays or be a quarterback's coach or something. If that's what he wants to do. At this point, he's probably got enough money. He doesn't have to do anything.
He'll take a year or two off.
Yeah, just take a break. But yeah, it's interesting. The ones that are open. Not surprised that neither of us mentioned the Giants' job, just because
the Giants, you have, and by the way, I guess we can say we called 131 Hugh Jackson Day. We can call 923 Pat Shurmur Day, because that was his 9-23 was his record for the 2 seasons as Cleveland head coach. To our point, again, no long-term security in Cleveland, and he was 9-23 in 2 seasons with the Giants.
Yeah.
But they at least have what seems to be a promising quarterback in Daniel Jones. You already have one of the best running backs in football in Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Get him a few weapons, and you've got something that you can turn around with pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think in the next year or two, especially if you get an offensive mind
yeah.
to run things there. I think they've got a chance to turn it around.
I think that's why Bieniemy is such a hot target for everybody this year, is because the 3 openings that we mentioned, Dallas, Cleveland, and New York, have a good core of offensive players to work with.
Yep.
Obviously Cleveland's going to have to hold on to Odell Beckham with the rumblings that he may want to be traded.
Come get me.
You got to keep him happy, and he's a talent. Like, you got to keep Odell Beckham happy if you want to keep him in Cleveland. But yeah, I think that's why teams are looking at offensive-minded coaches, Josh McDaniels, Eric Bieniemy, the 2 coordinators for the 49ers. People, these teams that are open have core offensive players that they want to move forward with.
Well, and Carolina has the maybe as you would maybe think, the shroud over the franchise being Punch Face, and they got to figure out what they're going to do with him.
Yeah, But
you do have.
He's got to figure out if he wants to play football, because we mentioned this could be an Andrew Luck situation where he decides he doesn't want to play anymore because he's taking a beating.
You do have,
but you got to decide if he's your quarterback going forward. You got to decide what to do with him.
But you do have the best all-purpose back in football down there, Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, he doesn't suck.
No,
he's pretty good.
1,000 both rushing and receiving. He's pretty good. So
and I love the people that were like, "Oh, it's because they didn't like the guy's talented. Get out of here!" Like, he's got a ton of touches because he's talented as shit.
He's that good. So Punch Face is stuck there. Tampa has a decision what to do with their Punch Face.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
If ever there was another reason to just dislike this man, this press conference.
After the game, after their finale, in which
Shut your mouth.
They go to overtime against Atlanta, and the final play of Tampa's season is Punch Face Winston throwing a pick 6 to lose in overtime.
To get to 30 interceptions.
He becomes the first player ever to throw 30 touchdowns and 30 picks this year. He
threw for over
5,000 yards.
Yeah.
So you look at this, and there's 2 ways you can spin it. Yeah, if he doesn't throw for 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, they don't get to 7 and 9. But if he doesn't throw 30 interceptions, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Totally in the playoffs. Maybe 10, 11 wins, they're in the playoffs.
If you look at their losses, they lost to the Giants by a point, the Saints by a touchdown. They lost to the Titans by 4. They lost to the Seahawks by a touchdown. They lost to the Texans by 3. They lose to the Falcons in overtime on a pick 6. Literally the difference in the game. Like, they're a lot closer to a 10-win season than they should have been. And Punch Face just finds a way to give it away. And then in the post-game press conference, they ask him about his future and what he wants to do. He's at the end of his rookie contract. What does he want to do? And he comes out with, I'm balling.
You look at my numbers, man. I'm balling. Now, he went on to say, obviously, these turnovers are inexcusable and they have to come to a stop.
Yeah, he's got to get rid of his turnovers, and that's a very good point.
Well, but then you have
guess who's prone to turnovers? Jameis Winston has. He's been his whole career. He's been prone to turnovers.
Then you have Bruce Arians after the games. If somebody in the media asked him, do you think if you had another quarterback here, you could win? And he's like, if we had another quarterback here, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's like, we can win with anybody.
Absolutely.
And that's probably true.
And then he asked him about, did that final pick six sway your decision one way or another to keep him or get rid of him? He said, well, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do with the guy, because he put up yardage-wise, one of the greatest seasons of all time, 5,109 yards.
Yep.
I mean, that's you can't shake a stick at that. They probably one of the best trio of wide receivers in the game.
Yeah,
and yet he throws 30 picks.
You can't keep turning the ball over, and ball
and
security.
The thing is,
ball security is job security, and right now he has terrible ball security. Since he's come into the league, he has more turnovers than anybody else in the league.
When he's going to want to get paid, he wants to get paid too.
He wants $30 million a year is the rumor. He wants $30 million a year. And oh, by the way, the quarterbacks that make $30 million a year are much more successful quarterbacks than you. So I don't know why he thinks that he's worth that. And Tampa Bay, if you're listening, don't give that man $30 million a year. I don't know if he's again, credit where credit's due. 5,100 yards is no joke. 33 touchdowns is no joke. The problem is 30 interceptions and the most turnovers since he's been in the league of anybody else in the league. That's bad. You cannot turn the ball over. And again, ball security is job security. And if you turn the ball over that many times, you're going to have a hard time winning football games.
If you cut it down to 20 interceptions, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
More than likely.
You look at all the one-score games they were in. I rattled off, 5 one-score games that they were in?
Yeah.
All by a touchdown or less?
Yeah.
1-point game, 4-point game, 6-point game. Like, if you don't turn the ball over in those games, you're a 10-6 team and you're going to the playoffs. Like, it's not good, man. Like, it can't happen. And again, I'll continue. He's a shitty person. Like, he's not a good person. He has no endearing qualities. He's ugly. It makes you want to punch him in the face. And he turns the ball over. So, like, what's the point? And I think Bruce Arians' answer is very telling. Yeah, eating a W and stealing crab legs and touching women inappropriately. And it's just, there's no endearing qualities about the man. And Bruce Arians' answer is very telling that he feels like he can win with a different quarterback. And we're going to find out, because I have a feeling that Jameis Winston is going to ask for more money than Tampa Bay should be willing to give him. Now, they are owned by the same people that I forget the name of the owners.
The Bidwells.
Yeah, that own like the largest soccer franchise in the world.
Yeah, Manu.
Yeah, they got plenty of money, so they can afford it. But I don't think Jameis Winston's where you invest your money.
I think you're gonna. I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa goes out. How about this? Tampa calls Cincinnati up and says, "What do you want for Andy Dalton?" Because they've got they have a really good trio of receivers. Bruce Arians strikes me as a guy that wants to work with a veteran more so than wanting to take on a rookie and develop him. Not saying he can't do it, but you've got a chance to win right now.
Yeah.
The quarterback.
I mean, you look at how close they are with a quarterback who turned the ball over 30 times,
30 picks, and you've finished 7-9.
Yeah, and Andy Dalton is much more appealing because. May not have the big arm that Winston does.
He's not going to turn it over.
Probably not as dynamic, but he's not going to throw 30 interceptions for you.
There you go.
And it would appear that the Bengals are willing to move on from Andy Dalton. Obviously, the longer we go towards the draft, the more likely it is that Joe Burrow is going to be the number 1 overall pick. So clearly, at that point, Andy Dalton becomes expendable, and we talked about it before the season started. This next year is the cheapest way to get rid of Andy Dalton. They can cut him loose for like a $1.5 million or something like that. I think it's worth it if I'm Bruce Arians to give him a call and say, hey, you want a 3rd rounder for Andy Dalton or a 4th rounder or whatever, and get him in the building as soon as possible.
I think it'd be a good move by Tampa to do it, because I think he still has plenty left in the tank.
And I think, like you mentioned, I think Bruce Arians is more willing to work with veteran quarterbacks. If you look through his career, that's who he's worked mostly with veteran quarterbacks. it would behoove them to go out and find a veteran, and Andy Dalton is a very viable option. Again, just ball security and keep the ball moving down the field without throwing interceptions. Andy Dalton can do that for you.
Yes, he certainly can. So we'll see what happens there. Let's move on, though, to the wild card weekend. And the AFC will kick it off on Saturday, then the NFC on Sunday. Let's first up here. Buffalo, 10-6, as the 5 seed. They are at Houston. The AFC South champs also finished 10-6 here. This should be an interesting one here, if no other reason why it looks like J.J. Watt's going to play.
Yeah.
He's active after tearing the pec muscle during the season. Looks like he's going to play. That'll certainly be a boost. You don't know how many snaps he's going to play.
Yeah, it was still a little bit of a bump, and we know how much he means to Houston and how much he means to that franchise. Just to have a helmet on, it makes a difference for them just because he really is energy for that defense. Whether he plays 10 plays or no plays at all, having him out there with a helmet on really makes a difference for them.
This should be also, I think, a pretty low-scoring game, too. Buffalo is one of the best scoring defenses in the league, and I think they're even top 5 in scoring defense. And Houston, with Deshaun Watson's actually 0-3 against teams with top 5 scoring defenses in his career. So doesn't happen often, but when it does, it does tend to bog things down. I think it's going to be a low-scoring one. I think the first one to 20 points wins this game, and it may not even get there. But I like Houston just enough. It's not going to shock me in any way, shape, or form if Buffalo wins this game because their defense is that good. And Josh Allen does a pretty good job taking care of the ball. The only difference is right now I think Josh Allen might not be there experience-wise to carry you to a win if you need to get points.
Well, we know that playoff time experience matters, and Allen doesn't have that. Again, credit to the Bills for the season they've had. Really kind of a shocker where they were really in contention for the division there, even late in the season to surpass New England. I'm sorry, but you know what? I like the Bills in this one, and mostly because despite the fact that Watson's been good, they still aren't great at protecting him, and I think he makes bad decisions. The 12 interceptions, and a lot of them when he's under duress. I like Buffalo to get after the quarterback a little bit and force Watson to make throws that he shouldn't normally make or make decisions that he shouldn't make. I think the Bills get a couple extra turnovers out of it, putting pressure on the quarterback. They're going to dial up the defense and put some pressure on the quarterback and try and get in the backfield and disrupt things. I think it gets them a turnover or two, and I think that ends up being the difference in this one. I got Buffalo in this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Buffalo wins this one. Again, this is not going to be a high-scoring game, or at least on paper, it should not be a high-scoring game.
I don't think this ends up as a 35-38 shootout. Like you mentioned, the first to 20 might get it, and odds makers agree that the over/under's at 43, and I think that's it's probably pretty accurate. 43 might be the right number because it
puts it right at like 23-20.
23-20 or 21-17, which is under. But I think that is where this game is going to trend. And again, I think Buffalo getting a couple turnovers out of the Texans is what's going to make the difference in this one.
The other AFC wildcard game, which will happen on Saturday night on CBS, so get ready for plenty of shots of Robert Kraft in the owner's booth.
Ooh, yay.
Tennessee at New England. For the first time in a decade, New England has to play on the first weekend because they inexplicably decided to no-show last week against Fitzmagic and lose at home to Miami. Lose at home to Miami. So because of it.
Side note, by the way, Ryan Fitzmagic has beaten the Patriots as a member of all 3 of the other teams in the division. He beat them as a New York Jet. He beat them as a Miami Dolphin. He beat them as a Buffalo Bill, which is again another obscure Fitzmagic stat that comes up. But yeah, he has beaten the Patriots in all 3 other uniforms in the division, which is kind of fun.
The funny thing is, there's not a lot of quarterbacks over the last 20 years that could say they've beaten the Patriots 3 times. Period.
Yeah,
and he's done it with 3 different teams
as a quarterback for 3 different teams. So good for him.
New England's obviously hosting here as a 3 seed. Tennessee wound up beating Houston last week, as we told you.
I expected it, but I had to go with my theory that the Raiders were going to make it.
And the
no-showed, by the way.
The Raiders no-showed against Denver.
They decided to go to Denver and lose anyway, so it didn't matter. But.
Yeah, and it wouldn't matter anyway because Indianapolis no-showed against Jacksonville.
Yeah, a lot of no-shows last week. Despite there being playoffs on the line, a lot of teams didn't decide to show up.
There you go. So Tennessee at New England here, and the number you see New England only favored by 5, and I think because
which is shocking.
I think the Week 17 result left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. The way they were just lethargic that entire way through that game and tried to come back late, and Fitzmagic wound up throwing a winner or scoring a winner with less than a minute left to beat New England and wound up costing Miami, I think, a slot or two in the draft. So. You beat New England.
They went to 5 from 3 to 5.
There you go. So they fall back because of that. So interesting one here nonetheless. And you've got a New England team. They're 12-4, but they're like 2-3 in their last 5 games. They're not playing well offensively. It seems like, as I said a couple of weeks ago, and it's still holding to be the case, a lot of their chunk plays are being picked up by the gadget plays, the trick plays.
Yeah, we mentioned it that when you're having to do a double reverse pass jackass to score a touchdown, something's up in New England, and this very intriguing matchup because New England again hasn't played on Wild Card Weekend in the last 10 years, and oh by the way, when they play on Wild Card Weekend, they've never made an AFC Championship game playing on Wild Card Weekend. They're 3-3. Tom Brady's 30-10 in the playoffs. 3-3 when he plays on Wild Card Weekend. He's 27-7 the other way around when they get the bye. Makes a big difference for a 42-year-old quarterback not getting that extra bye week, especially when your offense is struggling. Now you do get to play at home, which is one thing that they're comfortable doing. But Tennessee's coming to town, and oh by the way, since Ryan Tannehill took over the starting job, has been statistically the best quarterback in the NFL, better than Tom Brady.
Highest rated passer.
Highest passer rating since he took over the starting quarterback. This one is intriguing because Miami came in and beat them, but I don't think Tennessee can get it done. I think New England playing at home, it's the playoffs. This might be the only win they get in the playoffs, but I think they win this one.
Tennessee's beating New England here, and for some of the reasons I just expounded on, but you also have Ryan Tannehill, who's been playing very well.
Tannehill has been playing very well.
Possibly the offensive rookie of the year in A.J. Brown, who's been a terrific wide receiver all year long.
Over 1,000 yards this season.
Great find in the second round there. But we've said it in years past, and it always seems to be the case. There's 2 things that travel with you that you can win on the road in the playoffs: defense and running the football.
Yeah.
What does Tennessee do as well as anybody in the league?
They run the ball really well.
Exactly.
Derrick Henry does not suck. 1,500 yards this season.
Not suck.
16 touchdowns.
He is a monster to wear down. This is a type of game where I think you can give the ball to Derrick Henry 35 times. You don't need Ryan Tannehill to win this game. All you need Ryan Tannehill to do is not lose it.
Don't turn the ball over.
And what you also do with that is because, and part of that too is because New England has one of the best secondaries in the NFL.
Yeah.
And Stephon Gilmore might be up there for Defensive Player of the Year. He's been that good.
Yeah, they mentioned the Defensive Player of the Year might be a cornerback this year, which is kind of cool.
It might be him. He's been very, very good. But pound Derrick Henry until he physically cannot go anymore. If he's not on the when he's on the bench, if he does not have an oxygen mask on by the late third quarter, you're not giving him the ball enough here.
Yeah.
I don't have enough faith in New England here offensively to put points on the board enough to get it done. I mean, obviously they're going to be right there the entire game. No, it's not going to shock me if New England wins because this is what they do in the playoffs. But not having that extra week, still having that really just awful performance against Miami a week ago, and now you got a Tennessee team that can pound you against your will.
Yeah.
I like Tennessee here to get the job done and beat New England, and this could very well be the end of the New England dynasty because you got Belichick's getting up there. Brady's a free agent, even though he's not going anywhere.
Yeah. If he wants to continue playing, he will continue playing in a New England Patriots uniform.
If the Chargers were smart, they'd call Tom Brady up and offer him like $40 million a year because the Chargers. I know, but the Chargers need to sell PSLs and because nobody cares about the Chargers.
Yeah, but Tommy will play in New England. For
I get it. I'm with you, but. I think Tennessee is good enough here.
This one, it wouldn't shock me, but I like Brady and Belichick, especially at home.
Yep.
That's Tennessee has the scenario to win. Again, like you mentioned, defenses and running the ball travel, and they run the ball really well. And if they keep the ball at Tom Brady's hand, he can't win the game. So I agree. It's a possibility. I just like Belichick and Brady in the playoffs at home.
I get it.
Hard to pick against them.
Totally makes sense. All right, so let's move over to the NFC side here and a rematch from a year ago from the Minneapolis Miracle The Vikings at the Saints this time, so it's in the Superdome here, and they're going to have top two tailbacks back for Minnesota. So you'll have Dalvin Cook back, and he'll be seemingly be raring to go here. But you're talking about a New Orleans team that it's Drew Brees or Kirk Cousins. I'm sorry, this is Minnesota.
Kirk or Kurt Cousins?
Oh, I said Kurt.
Is it going to be Kurt this week?
I said Kurt. New Orleans defense is so good, and they get so overlooked because of everything New Orleans does offensively. We talked last week about what Michael Thomas did in breaking the receptions record with a game to go. He went up finishing with over 1,700 yards. Nobody can stop him. Obviously Kamara is there and can do everything. Apparently now Taysom Hill's decided, I'm going to go be a wide receiver amongst everything else he does for that team.
Yeah.
And I like New Orleans here, and it would not shock me after this game if Minnesota moves on from Mike Zimmer.
Really?
It wouldn't shock me. I don't think it happens, but if it turns out to be like a blowout, like a 35-10 type of game, wouldn't shock me at all if Minnesota moves on from Mike Zimmer and try and figure out what the hell to do with Kirk Cousins' contract.
Unloading that money is going to be tough.
Good luck.
Yeah, they paid him a lot of money, and we mentioned at the time, guaranteed money. We mentioned at the time that that was really the contract that kind of set it off. He was the one he was the first one to go out and get that fully guaranteed contract.
Yep.
And now that has become the standard. But
Jacksonville followed that mode with Big Dick Nick, and now they're stuck with him.
Yep, trying to figure out how to get rid of that guaranteed contract. But
right,
yeah, this one could get ugly for Minnesota. They don't have a terrible defense, but they're limping in. Losers of their last 2, 3 of their last 5. Chicago game notwithstanding, because they were playing a lot of backups, really a game that meant nothing to them because they were locked into where they were going to be anyway. But yeah, Drew Brees at home in the Superdome, we mentioned it. Home field advantage of the Superdome, and obviously having Drew Brees under center makes a big difference. Experience makes a big difference, and Kirk Cousins is probably going to be Kirk Cousins because we know how he performs against teams with winning records, particularly in games that matter.
He's also not that it matters. He's also 0-9 on Monday Night Football now.
Yeah, so
even though it's a Sunday afternoon game.
This one could get out of hand for the Vikings.
I
don't know if Mike Zimmer gets fired. It's an interesting proposition because it would not shock me. I don't think he does, though. I think
it just kind of feels like with Minnesota, they've kind of plateaued.
Yeah, they've reached their ceiling at 10-win season.
And you wonder, you start to wonder then if Mike Zimmer is the guy that can get them over the top. And because it feels like with the guys they have that are still fairly young, they've got some guys on defense that are getting a little older, so they got to address that in the offseason. But it feels like their window that is now.
Yeah.
And if you can only get so far, maybe it's time to make a change. I don't want to see it happen. I think Mike Zimmer is a really good coach. He should have been a head coach in Cincinnati 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion. So, but I think this game also will be the biggest margin of victory
probably for wild card
weekend. Of the weekend.
I think you're right. It's an interesting one. Just because, like you mentioned, Mike Zimmer may be on the hot seat, and part of that may be the division now with what Green Bay and Matt LaFleur is doing in Green Bay. Maybe there's a little added pressure there because it appears that Green Bay is kind of pulling away from the division with the success they had this season.
Right.
And the Bears aren't going to catch you. They've committed to Mitchell Trubisky for next season, which. Poor decision there in Chicago, but maybe if they're looking to take the next step and they don't feel like Zimmer's going to get them there, the added pressure from the division with LaFleur and in Green Bay maybe is the tipping point, particularly if this game gets out of hand for them.
What if they let go of Zimmer and all of a sudden they want to interview Mike McCarthy?
Oh, the drama!
After all those years in Green Bay,
yeah, that would be interesting.
So
that would be fun.
That's all hypothetical.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. Again, I don't think Zimmer is going to get let go, but if it gets ugly in this one, it would not.
It's a possibility.
Would not shock me at all. And if they not only go that route, but they decide basically to do a full reset and build the team around Dalvin Cook and move on from Kirk Cousins and eat some of the money.
Yeah.
All right. So the last wild card game takes place on late Sunday afternoon. Seattle at 11-5 has to go to Philadelphia, who won the NFC least at 9-7, and So they get the home game, even though they have 2 games worse than Seattle on the year. After Seattle, by an inch or 2, losing to San Francisco on Sunday.
By the way, the pass interference that went uncalled the play before that was mind-boggling.
Yeah,
the linebacker essentially grabbed the tight end around the waist, and for some reason,
that's correct,
went uncalled. Now, Seattle not getting their play call in time from the 1-yard line was a little confusing. They ran Marshawn Lynch out. What's there to think about? Like the last time you were on the 1-yard line, Marshawn Lynch jumped over everybody. Run that play again. Run everybody out there, run that play again, and inexplicably get a delay of game penalty rather than running it from the 1. Now they're running the ball from the 6. But
or you have Russell Wilson just call his own number there.
Yeah, just run it. Somehow getting a delay of game there on the 1 just essentially made the difference.
Seattle finished 4-4 at home.
Yeah. Shocking.
But 7-1 on the road. 7-1 on the road.
And they're on the road for week 1 in the playoffs, wild card weekend at Philly. What do you got?
Seattle's going home. I have Philadelphia here. Carson Wentz is playing so well, especially given the fact of all these dudes that he has had go on IR, whether it's offensive linemen, skill players, whatever the case may be. Seemingly everybody that has been a key contributor for him the last couple of years has gone down. I think they're going to get their best offensive lineman, Lane Johnson, back for this game. So that's a huge boost.
Huge boost.
Up front, because you obviously know, being a former offensive lineman yourself, you pay attention to that. He's one of the better ones in the league.
He's really good.
He's one of the better ones in the league. I think Philadelphia wins this game here. I think this is going to be one of those ones where a turnover or 2, maybe even 1 turnover makes the difference here, but I don't trust Seattle's offense to consistently put points on the board, and that's been a problem for them this season. You look at yes, they're 11-5, but they've been in like 11 or 12 one-score games. It's nuts how good they've been.
Yeah.
I mean, their scoring margin is minute, given what their record is.
Cleveland by 4, Cincinnati by 1, Pittsburgh by 2. Yeah, a lot of.
Look at that.
I saw a stat. Somebody posted that if all 1-score games were flipped, that most of the playoff teams would not be in the playoffs. And in fact, Seattle, I think, now that you mentioned, I believe would have been something like 5-11 if the 1-score games were flipped. It makes a difference, like it really does, it's tough for me in this one because, again, it's the experience factor, and Russell Wilson has been really good in the playoffs, and it's hard because Carson Wentz has been playing really well down the stretch, like you mentioned. I think the difference may be the home field here and the cross-country travel for Seattle, having to go on the road, going all the way to Philly. I think that may end up being the deciding factor in this one. I'm with you. I didn't at first I didn't think that this was the way I was going to go, and then I looked at it a little more. I feel like Philly's going to get this one at home and win wild card weekend. And again, like you mentioned, just can't trust Seattle's offense. Again, injuries play a factor. They can't keep any running back healthy, which is why Marshawn Lynch is back now. I want the story of it. I want Marshawn Lynch to win. I think it's fun to see Marshawn Lynch. By the way, credit to Seattle fans when he scored that touchdown, throwing Skittles onto the field. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like the story of it. I don't see them going on the road again with backup running backs, guys fresh off the street, being able to win in Philly.
I also wonder at what point is Seattle upper management. I know Pete Carroll has a large influence over that. At what point are they going to say, we got to get Russell Wilson some weapons?
Yeah.
Now, I know they lost Josh Gordon for an extenuating circumstance. I get it, but he wasn't a real contributor for them anyway because he wasn't
could
there
have been, but he wasn't.
He wasn't there very long. He said the injuries are a part of the game, but name me one wide receiver for them other than Doug Baldwin. They got DK Metcalf, who's got negative percentage body fat. But that's all you know about him.
Yeah.
Is he's 6'4", 240 pounds and has no body fat.
Yeah, no, he's made some big catches for them, but
it's Doug Baldwin.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett, okay, that's fine. But I mean,
well, he was throwing to Hollister down the stretch there in that game. That was exactly, Jacob Hollister. Right?
That's what I'm saying. At what point are you going to give him some help? Much like we were talking about for years with Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. When are you going to give him some help?
Yeah,
he can't do it all himself every year, and that's why I said
he seems to be able to. That's
why I've said over the years that Russell Wilson should be in the MVP voting nearly every year. And yet, I think somebody said earlier this year he's never had one vote for MVP.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Given everything that he does, you take him off that team, that's a 4-win team.
Yeah, I agree. Russell Wilson is a difference maker.
And they're probably going to get beat in the first round by Philadelphia. At least that's what we're telling you.
Yeah, could be true.
All right, so we'll see what happens there. And it should be a lot of fun this weekend. Just enjoy some football. Yeah, it's a new year. Everybody's kind of refreshed after the new year. Some of us have sobered up. Some of us haven't. So sit back. There's football starting later today. Watch it all the way through Monday because you have the MAC champion Miami Redhawks in action on Monday night.
Yeah.
That's just fun to say.
January 6th.
There you go. So enjoy that. We thank you, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of Fumblegate. Next week, we're talking about the divisional round in the NFL playoffs, and we'll also give you a full breakdown of the national championship game between LSU and Clemson. We'll break down all the ins and outs of that, who wins the game, so on and so forth, and hopefully something fun happens over the next week or so until we join you again. There's some new hiring or firing of somebody in the league, hopefully some kind of shocking thing. If it's big enough, maybe we'll do a bonus show at some point here on YouTube in between now and then. But for now, for the Fumblegate Fatty, Adam Kieft, I'm Jason Grefer. We thank you so much for joining us. Follow us on the social media, the Facebook, the Twitter, handles at the bottom of the screen, facebook.com/Fumblegate. We thank you so much, and we will see you again next week here on Fumblegate on YouTube.
Michigan fans, enjoy your 10-win seasons. Getting smacked by another Power 5, unsurprisingly. Bums!
Khakis for life.
10 wins, that's what he's going to get you every year, 10 wins.
And 4 losses.
And lose a bowl game. Lose to Ohio State, lose a bowl game.
First time ever they've lost back-to-back bowl games by double digits.
Yeah, he's got one win against Ohio State, and between bowl games and Ohio State, he's got one win, and that's the bowl game in his first year. Hasn't beat Ohio State, can't win a bowl game.
Maybe Michigan will fire Jim Harbaugh, and we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, so much for signing off. Anyway, see you guys next week.
Now we're going. Bye-bye.
Enjoy it.